Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sui Generis. My name is Isaac Christopher Lugogo. Today we are privileged to have a burgeoning scholar and a man of no mean repeat. Himself, Dr. Professor Shadat Ssemakula. Professor Shadat has distinguished himself in several writings, and he is a man who teaches law in a number of institutions in this country. A graduate of some of the good alma maters in England. At the same time, has established himself in the Islamic world, but also in the Christian world. So he is a man that is well exposed in a number of matters that we're going to discuss today, particularly the issue that hinders or that has to do with corruption of this country and the challenges that we are having, whether or not the victimization or the pointing of fingers at particular individuals is sufficient enough. But let me start by giving him this question. I had watched on Twitter two distinguished individuals who had been invited by NBS to give commentary on whether or not the issue of the corruption work that happened yesterday was a matter of copy and paste, and whether or not there are any lessons for Uganda, or it was a lost cause. Professor Shadat, was it a matter of copy and paste or not?
In my opinion, I would argue that since Kenya is a member of the East African community, there is brotherhood connection between Kenya and Uganda. They have Bantu, they have Jalo, which we share the same borders. Some of our brothers, sisters study in Kenya, others study here. So I want to argue that Kenya ignited the political spectrum in Uganda into this strike. The youth in Kenya stood up against the higher taxes, the law that had been signed to increase taxes. But also in Kenya, let me make it very clear. The Kenya strike had two issues. One, it had a disagreement between Uhuru, who is against Ruto. Remember, Ruto is under the Democratic Alliance. Raila Odinga is Azimio, Uhuru under Jubilee. Now, because of their antagonism, because of their disagreement between Ruto and Uhuru, they used this tax as an ignition to say that Ruto can leave power. But the advantage was the old man Raila Odinga, who was able to dialogue. He looked at two issues as a scholar, that the disadvantages of Ruto going will reignite another election. And he said, we need urgent dialogue in order to see peace in Kenya. A lot of people died, the youth died, under the pretext of the tax, but it was a political move to see that Ruto goes away, and then the Chukuyu can dominate the politics.
So in your dispensation, you feel like the cause of tax is really not an issue, because His Excellency Ruto is arguing. He said, I want to take it from 21 to about 17, which is predominantly even a bit higher than Uganda. But when he makes comparison with other countries, modern countries, he says they even have much higher rates of taxes than Kenya does. And his argument is that I'm trying to increase the taxes so that we can reduce on the debt reliance of foreign aid, which I think is a noble cause in my argument. I mean, so are you trying to say that these guys had no cause? It's just a political gimmick?
You find there was a lot of smuggling. They are looting. It was not peaceful. In fact, I would salute the government of Uganda that the casualties that we have in Kenya, the number is too high. In Uganda, we don't have any casualties. No one was shot today at the moment.
Okay, in light of the corruption work, or in light of the tax? Because there was a Kasita, remember the Kasita protest, which was not non-violent, if you remember.
Yes, because you see, Sachito was able to call the president.
Yes.
The president came for dialogue. In a dialogue, you may not agree, but I salute the member of Kasita and the president to say that there is a dialogue. Remember, at times, people who are myopic, they see dialogue as a weakness. Even at the time when Nelson Mandela was dialoguing with Dick Clark, Chief Buthelezi of the Zulu saw him as a hypocrite. But Mandela was able through the dialogue to be released, and then through the dialogue in 1994 we are seeing the first election. The Zulu and the Chief Buthelezi never voted Mandela in power. At times,
good point.
Dialogue is a way forward because it liberated South Africa from apartheid. I assume that we can always have a dialogue in whatever intricacies that rise in an economy.
I think what Professor is saying is that sometimes even what Dr. Martin Luther King taught us is that sometimes at the killing of Malcolm X when he was assassinated, he said sometimes it is necessary for us to disagree without being violently disagreeable. Now the point I want to question to you, Professor, is tell me, particularly in the context of Uganda, do we have a cause to fight corruption, first of all? Do we have an evil called corruption in Uganda?
Yes.
If so, where does it originate? And second question, do we have the mandate to victimize particular individuals and say individual X, individual Y? Because I saw in the march or the attempted march towards Parliament, there were certain individuals, the youth, who had placards and there were names of individuals written on, particular names, for example, the names of the speakers. In your opinion, would you think it's a fair what? It's a fair game in terms of fighting corruption? Is that the way the nation should go?
I think, as you know, corruption in Uganda, I don't support corruption in Uganda. But let me highlight that Anita Among is a sacrifice of Uganda under the pretext of corruption because of the passage of the LGBT bill into law. Why? We know under the history of Uganda from 1926 how the white corrupted Sir Apollo Kagwa by 126 cows to be agent of his colony masters. We know that post-independence, by 1978, when Idi Amin was expelling away the Indians, there was a lot of smuggling, there was a lot of corruption in Uganda. We are seeing when NRM came to power, clear, by 1986, they occupied the houses with no transaction, without transfers. That was high corruption scam. And they took everything without the legal process. Now, after that saga, did we learn from it? Laws were passed. We know that in corruption, the first law was in 1958. Because by 1958, we had a law on corruption. We had a law in 1970. We had the 2009 Act. We have the leadership code where everybody has to declare his assets. This is, you remember when Ken Ocham refused to declare and was suspended.
Right.
We have the State House Anti-Corruption Unit. We have also added on the URA Anti-Corruption Unit to monitor. All of these mechanisms have been around.
Yes.
And when you put everything of the failure to Anita Among is not right. Let us look at the most fundamental scandals in Uganda, where money was spent.
Tell us some of them.
We had the 2008 Temangalo saga.
Temangalo saga, yes.
When you remember the Temangalo saga, we know the Temangalo saga, Right Honorable Mbabazi, who is also called Muhammad Imbayo. Those are the names that were used when they are trying to get guns from Gaddafi.
Okay.
So, Mama Mbabazi bracket Muhammad Imbayo inflated prices of land in Temangalo that each acreage was 24 million. There was a lot of debate in Parliament, and they had to go to British Virgin Island to find where money was put. There was a lot of investigation. That Temangalo saga, a lot of money was lost. We never got anything out of it.
Issue number 2.
Issue number 2, we had what we call the Chogam 2007, where in Chogam we lost around $3.9 million. And the following were implicated. Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi, Rukutana Mwesiga, John Nasasa was the chief whip by then. We had the director legal who was sitting, who had also lived in Kenya. In all those in that scandal, it was only Gilbert of Kenya who was charged. Others were exonerated.
Okay.
Then we also had the bicycle scandal, where we lost $1.7 million. The government of Uganda contracted a German company to supply bicycles to the RC5. No single bicycle was ever produced or delivered.
Okay. Another issue?
We had the microfinance support scandal, 2011. In this one, we are seeing people that were more implicated. The board of directors chairman was the former Vice President Speciosa Wandila Kazimu. It was alleged that he was getting 500,000 every day. And a lot of money was lost during that time. And after that, Museveni, the president, made a shuffle. But it costed Uganda a lot of money, almost 60 billion. We have the pension scam, which costed Uganda 160 billion. And the money was intended to pay 1,018 former workers of the East African community. This money was never went to the beneficiaries. It was transacted or fastened through Cairo Bank, and that money was lost. The other scandal is when Uganda or the government intended to purchase helicopters. And the helicopter each costed $1.5 million. When you look at the helicopters that were purchased, they were very old. Uganda lost money in that scandal, almost $1.5 million. If you convert that, the amount of money lost into that scandal was equivalent to $80 million of the helicopter scandal. The person that was put to purchase was Emakato. Then we had recently the Karamaja saga. Under the Karamaja saga, we have lost millions of money. The people implicated into this saga will have the Right Honorable Jessica Lupu. We have Anita Among, the Speaker, Robin Nabanja, Judith Nabakova, Rose Okero, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, Jacob Maxon, Lukia Nakadama, the Deputy OP, Prime Minister, Matia Kashaja, the Financial Minister, we have Billy Soboa, the Chief Whip, we have Nandutu. Now, what puzzles me that those who returned the iron sheets were exonerated. But also, instead of paying back the cost, which was 71,000, for them they were told to pay at a cost of 68,000.
Lower than
the purchase price. Among those that were exonerated was Nabakova. Second was Rebecca Kadaga, Matia Zawashinja, and Nandutu, who returned, was charged. Now, the question was the double standard in the Mabati saga. The white or the Europeans used the Mabati saga as a beacon of hope. Under the Immigration Act of UK, Section 212, they sanctioned Anita Among, his husband Magogo, Kitutu, Nandutu. Now, all proponents of international or geopolitics, they understand that the sanction of Anita Among was not due to corruption in Uganda. all researchers would adduce and agree. The passage of the gay bill is the reason as to why Anita Among was sanctioned.
So are you trying to say that Right Honorable Anita Among is only a victim of circumstance and she's probably being used as a sacrificial lamb because of the passing of the homosexuality bill?
Definitely.
If so, do you agree or do you don't see any problem with the lavish spending of the Right Honorable Speaker in areas, for example, like I'm told the hospital that are named after certain first family individuals, the homes, the luxurious cars that they traded with the husband, as we read in the news. Do you think this has nothing to do with the questions whether or not these individuals, where are they getting the money? Is that money substantive enough that they get from Parliament to take care of, or do they have other businesses that will help them earn that
Now
money?
you could ask, Anita Among was FDC candidate. And having been in FDC, he was among the financial agents of FDC. Now those who fought the war. Those who think they have been in NRM longer than Anita Among, they see him as an intruder.
Okay.
It is common even in the family. When you are born out of wedlock, you come to the family, you are the cleverest, you have money, you have a lot of, you face a lot of hostility.
So you think...
So now Anita Among,
yes,
having conquered, becoming a speaker within a short period, to many who never thought of God's grace, and also those who never knew that God can, whatever God has ordained, you can't stop it. Among it was blessed by God to be Speaker of Parliament.
Professor, the point that I'm trying to make here is that is what we see, what we read, what they show, is it commensurate with their salary structure?
What you know that whenever there are concoctions of corruption, as a lawyer, there are procedures. We have Parliament Park, which investigates. That case can be referred to IGG, which has the power to investigate and refer matters to anti-corruption court. A person is charged and convicted. We don't have any evidence submitted to the legal procedure for us to adduce and agree. We hear rumors.
Okay.
And the Parliament is at liberty to produce the evidence, submit the evidence through the legal procedure, and a PAC can say these are the evidence. They can refer matter through IGG.
Right.
They can refer matter under the State House Anti-Corruption Unit. Let Anita Among be referred to Anti-Corruption Unit. He's charged like others, and then we have evidence. Because the irony is, the West never gave a chance to Anita Among to explain his position.
So you think
Anita Among was never given a chance. Even the allegation that Anita has got a house in England, it has been proven it was a concoction. So me as a legal scholar,
yes,
I need the evidence to be
before
tabled
absolutely
by Parliament. This is the evidence. Evidence, when provided, whistleblowers will be protected. And then we have a legal procedure that at least our jurisprudence can be developed through the corruption scandal.
And I agree with you in a way, in a sense that because we all believe that presumption of innocence is a fundamental principle in jurisprudence.
Yes.
And therefore we can assume that someone is innocent until proved what?
Yes.
Guilty. So in spite of what we see, in spite of what we have read about these individuals in the newspapers, on social media and the like, perhaps it's not fair for us to point fingers without them even having gone through the course of the law. As
Yes, I call them innuendos.
Yes. Now,
And even innuendos are subject. If you have issues of concoctions, if you have issues of
now
innuendos.
the issues that you mentioned about 7 instances that of different people, including the Temangal and the likes.
Yeah, the ID saga.
Were those exhaustively, did they go through the judicial process?
Yes, because when you look at
someone argue and say that they're also innuendos, save from individuals like the Honorable Vice President who may have,
but
been taken to
it
court.
was taken to New Zealand.
Yes, I'm saying save
It
for
was
individuals.
charged
Save for
and
individuals.
taken. Because the question is,
how about this
like the ID saga, the ID saga which was ignited, we lost 150 billion, and the people implicated were, one of them was Attorney General Shadat. We had the PS of local government, Stephen Kagwana. Now, the question is, in this scandal, the person that is supposed to present the government is Attorney General, isn't it? Now, the question is, I never saw people, members of parliament, even states of such a nature.
Okay. So you are saying...
And also when now, recently we know, we had a Ponent, the Lubowa saga. Because when I went to Lubowa, you are seeing bricks. Maybe the hospital is under time. They are building and we don't know. Maybe the hospital, the construction is under time. But when I reach Lubowa, MPs are going there, a lot of money was put. Now, after that, I would see the entire parliament on strike.
Now,
the entire nation on strike.
Professor, without pointing fingers at a particular individual, I agree with you that you do not point fingers without credible evidence against an individual, including the Right Honorable Speaker. We should give her the benefit of being innocent until proved not guilty. But do you recognize that the country has a problem as far as corruption is concerned? According to Transparency International, Uganda is ranked about 142, I think, 142 out of about 100 and something, meaning that we're doing badly as far as corruption is concerned. In East Africa, we're actually ranked number 4. In Africa, we're ranked about number 20, about 14 or 20 something. So in Africa, in East and Central Africa. So we are arguing and saying Africa as a continent loses about $73 trillion in corruption. This is almost equivalent to the amount of money that we're supposed to pay back as Africa as a debt to this donor country. Aren't you think that maybe if we better manage our resources, we could be able to have saved less in terms of these lavish expenditures and take care of ourselves? We are talking about a country that is living on less than $1 a day. We're talking about a country whose human growth, which has no minimum wage, for example. These are issues. Don't you feel these things bite you as an individual, that corruption is itself a problem, and that these youth, perhaps whether right or wrong in terms of the modus operandi, the way they're using, have a cause? And the president himself has said, I am fighting this, I'm taking it upon myself to fight this animal called corruption. Are you saying that we shouldn't talk about it?
No, I think my analysis into corruption is a question of procedure and strategy. For example, when you look at the Lasagna saga, the 169 billion, this is an issue that went even to court. Clear. And now, when the court pronounced on payment, the other person is not paying. The question that we should look at, that corruption should not be looked at Anita Among. We should look at the mechanism. In fact, by the way, research that I'm going to give, the most corrupt position is the judiciary of Uganda.
As far as corruption is concerned.
Yes, I'm going to give you all the amount.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a summary of analysis.
Please do.
Because now, if the temple of justice is corrupt, then you're not to fight in corruption.
Absolutely.
Because Martin Gunn and Nelson Mandela said that when the judiciary cannot safeguard injustice, it cannot fight against tyranny,
right, then
you will never have a state that is independent.
Right.
You will see that at times why I also talk about corruption as a syndicate, which is political. We are seeing a lady by the name of Geraldine Usowa. Geraldine is becoming a victim under the grips of corruption. This is a lady who said, I'm not allowing to hire or to rent out premises which are costing 10 billion. He renovated public building at the cost of 1 billion. Now the mafias who had already made a deal to to get 10 billion and now using Geraldine into the scandal of the compensation of what I call the cooperative scandal and others.
Take us through the statistics, like you rightly said, Professor.
Now, when you look at the statistics, that the money that is lost into the Parliament of Uganda, now you look at the salary absenteeism. People that are paid full salary, some are ghosts, some don't appear at work, is 2.3 trillion. Loss of environment, loss through environmental resources, we lose around 2.2 trillion. Contract and royalties, people that pay out in order to get this contract. You find somebody is getting a bid to construct a road. The cost is 10 billion, but that person is only getting 4 to construct it. That's why roads of Uganda don't last too long. And when you look at the contract and royalties, we lose around 859 billion. Judiciary bribery is 762 billion. Procurement is 6.4 billion.
Right.
Security, 4.2 trillion. Agriculture, we lose 760 billion. Water and environment is 654 billion. Health care, we lose 191 billion. Unpaid utilities is 470 billion. Direct investment, 18.5 billion. Loss due to mispresentation and underreporting or undervalue, we lose at around 136 billion. Procurement deals under PPDA, we lose 6.14 billion. Illegitimate contracts, we lose 858 billion. The IGB report, where Anita Among was called upon and he said this is absurd, we lose a total of 9.14 trillion annually.
Wow.
According to Transparency International, that is also the report, and also we are ranked number 141 out of 180 countries. And in the world, the most countries that are transparent, there are only few, there are around 5. We have Singapore, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and there is another state. Most of the countries, even America, they have a problem of corruption.
So are you...
And now the issue in Uganda,
yes,
the highest form of corruption is through bribery and embezzlement. You going to getting a passport, which is 50, you want it in 2 days. You say, can I pay 300? So the worst problem, the most contributors of corruption are you and me under the so-called bribery. You want things to be quicker. So unless we will become jingoistic in nature with the love of our country, corruption will not end, because we, you and me, who need quick services. And remember also, we have a problem. Those in power, like what Honorable Kanya said, it is you who drive a wish that suffer with pitfalls. For us to have V8, we don't get a problem. He also said, I quote, that some of us, when we get sick, we have the money to go abroad. It is you they want an inch to fight to see that there is facilities, there is medication in hospitals. Now, the question at hand, my problem is about the selective approach of corruption. Anita Among, after the passage of the gay bill, he became a center of all of this, of the lavishes, dresses, the lavish house. When you look at the house of the late Right Honorable Jack Boran, was bigger than the house of Anita Among. And I've not seen people rising up against that. We have seen a lot of scandals. And the question is the selective or the double standard of the approach. And that is the problem. So you're saying Anita Among should not be seen as a sacrifice. Because when you look, the political pundits are using Anita Among in order to take over Bukedia, in order to take over the parliament, because when you are my deputy, I'm not saying type in equation, and they work together. I would say both the principal and the deputy into the scandal.
And that's why someone was arguing and saying that these individuals who are walking to Parliament, little did he see many of them perhaps coming from Mukareba, or others coming from Gadumide, or others coming from Kaliwe. They were centralized people from within the center who are, and like you, media pointed out, that were probably more journalists than the people who were protesting against, and they were playing out cards in respect to this particular individual. So, whereas you have made a case for the Right Honorable Anita Among, that shouldn't be used as an excuse perhaps to justify corruption in this country.
Yes, I think that is not an excuse. But whenever you are playing the law, remember, even if you convict me and you have not followed the procedure, the court will exonerate you. There are procedures to everything. I've told you there is no evidence adduced from the Parliament of Uganda, from the park, where they have taken a matter either to under the Anti-Corruption Act. We are not saying Anita Among being called upon under the leadership code, because all leaders, even me as a leader, I do declare my finances annually. I'm not seeing that corruption unit coming up with the evidence of that nature.
Okay.
I'm not seeing charges under that corruption court. I'm not seeing anything of that. I'm clear. These laws were made to avoid rumors and concoctions.
Okay.
So if Parliament is right on Anita Among, let them table the evidence. Let the evidence appear. By the way, we have more corruption in universities. You'll find a university like Gulu,
don't have to mention,
and you find other universities where you see their recruitments, their ghost employees, and too much is happening. Now, if you are to do, you are talking about corruption, it should be a total surgery to all institutions. And even if Anita Among goes, the question is, when Anita Among goes, is that an end to corruption? If Anita is corrupt, the only way of cleaning up that mechanism is charging Anita Among, convicting Anita Among, it will become an example. We need to adapt the Bangladesh model.
Yes.
The Bangladesh model is, whenever the issues of corruption rise, within 60 days, that case is cleared. Now, Parliament makes a lot of noise. Within 2 years, there is no evidence. Somebody is not charged, is not convicted. We waste a lot of money into investigations. At times, even the police arrest somebody, they don't have evidence. Then, after some time, somebody is exonerated. The other position, we can also adapt the Singapore model, what we call fast track. Any case of corruption is fast tracked. The other way we could do better is citizens should be involved into the budget mechanism of the country. Remember recently, the saga of Sise, of Masaka, where they were inflating the budget, where Parliament makes a deal to government agencies that you are getting 70 billion, we are going to add you another. For example, Sise and Yusuf Mutembule, they told the Wangadia that we are going to increase your budget by 20%. Meaning, they are to benefit 11 billion through our budget. Now, remember, Parliament appropriates. We need to amend who appropriates. Maybe laws should be passed. If Parliament is not still being with the decorum and the etiquette, we should find resolutions of appropriation of funds so that we avoid such misappropriation of funds.
So, Professor, I hear you loud and clear. You made a clear case for the Right Honorable Speaker, Anita Among, and I agree with you on a number of issues there. Rather than pointing fingers at, I think it's a general thing that we need to tackle as a country, to fight corruption as a country. And what are some of those amendments? How do you feel we could tackle it? Is it, for example, can you take us through the procession in terms of the youth, for example, who are trying to demonstrate? Do they have a right to demonstrate? And if so, what would be the procedure in terms of that?
The youth, if any Ugandan has a right to freedom of assembly. But the irony, we are going to analyze the freedoms of assembly, the freedom of expression, vis-a-vis the Public Management Act. Because the freedom of expression is limited. In the case of the case of Andrew Mwenda and Obomi Andrew,
Yes.
you could see that freedom of expression was limited by the courts. We have a case of Justice Musota of Nabagesa against Attorney General. You could see that the freedom of expression by courts is not absolute. So as we also express our freedoms, we should know that the interpretation of the courts is not the way we also interpret as citizens.
Okay.
We need to be sensitized on such issues so that when everybody gets to know, they will understand the legal gymnastics. And remember that at times, like the GSQ case in England, where the right to peaceful assembly was never acknowledged even by the court, because at times the state can define what is reasonable and what is peaceful.
Okay.
Now the question is, given the African ignition of coup, we saw it in Sudan, we saw it in Libya, we saw it in Tunisia, we saw it in Egypt. Now, any strike that you see, even if it's peaceful, a state would assume this would be a mechanism of overthrow.
Okay.
So that's why it would not be proportionate to bring military in such a position. But however, under Joe, police can call the military to come in to give support.
Okay.
But in this side time, I never saw that the military was more needed because the number were few and these people are carrying placards peaceful. I think police could handle. But also, maybe with intelligence, there's some information behind. Remember, Kenya started simply, but at the end of the day, almost 100 people died. Others have become disabled.
Right.
Others, there was a lot of looting.
Right.
Kenya lost almost 20.9 trillion into that stuff.
And
now a state
yes.
like Uganda, they don't want an economy because we are living. So maybe they thought that such could trigger. And remember, the West are not bothered about your human rights. Whenever they get a chance under the pretext of human rights, they will come occupy, and after occupation, they cause tyranny, they take over the exploration of oil and diamond and whatever. The same in Congo. The West don't bother about your rights.
Okay.
They use such strikes or violence as a mechanism for them to come to control and take over, change the political terrain.
There is a saying that when Kenya catches a cold, basically Uganda will sneeze as an effect. So perhaps you're making that point very clear that there was maybe an intimation or perhaps signs that what happened in Kenya would happen in Uganda if no amends had been taken. And maybe that's why we see so much security involved, intelligence involved in terms of...
because when you look at Kenya, Kenya's intelligence was very poor. Even terrorism, Uganda has been always ahead of terrorism. And Kenya has suffered a lot of terrorism damage. A lot of people have died.
Okay.
Their intelligence is not working. Because now when you look at Uganda, we had a strike. Some people have been taken to court. They are going to be given bail. And none of them died. But what I ask between the youth and the adults, much as the president is in power, he has got money, he has got the military, it doesn't mean that the state can be overthrown regardless of what, like Libya.
Yes.
We need a dialogue. As
dialogue.
I say, we had issues of apartheid in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was able to dialogue with de Klerk. And through the dialogue with de Klerk, it brought sanity to South Africa. Chief Buteres of Nkata Freedom, he refused. Mandela was tainted as hypocrite.
True.
Because he said we cannot use blood for revenge.
Right. Mandela.
And through that with the Bishop Desmond Tutu, they fought for forgiveness,
Right.
reconciliation, and then the country is now more peaceful. I think we can engage in a dialogue,
Yes.
and through such a dialogue, we can have peace. For example, Balam had come up with a better solution. He said, let the youth come to Kololo.
Okay.
we discuss our issues,
Okay.
and then people should be heard. Now, had the youth not been given an avenue for dialogue, that would have been worse.
Okay.
But given they were given avenue to discuss, that avenue will be taken.
Okay.
The other position is, was this a manifestation of corruption or individuals seeking popularity for election? It is a question of politics.
I didn't see certain substantive individuals, leaders of opposition, for example. I never saw leaders from opposition camps. I never saw human rights activists who are substantially, who would have actually maybe, who say the things a lot,
Yes.
ordinarily.
Yes.
I never saw many of them. I saw young faces who are trying to, and even some of them when they're called to give audience or explain some of these things, they back away and they've left the ball in innocent young people who rightly have a cause, who feel pain for this country. But perhaps the question you're saying is that they needed to be guided in terms of more substantive and more good ways. In other words, there are many ways of killing a rat. You can cut off its head, you can poison it, you can use a mousetrap. So you're saying that the avenues they used may not have been the best. They have a cause, yes, but there are other avenues that could have been employed to reach and serve the purpose.
Yeah, because the problem,
notwithstanding the fact that even
you would say
the
that
terms are
Kenya,
about to get over, and they could even recall these individuals from parliament, or even refuse to vote them back into parliament. So there are many options that I think, in your opinion, I think that were probably available. Although we cannot rule out the fact that corruption is an issue.
There is a corruption.
Yes.
But remember, we have a politicalization
of the issue.
has made the issue useless.
Yes.
Because Anita Among is a member of parliament. We are towards elections. Are clear. And now, with the politics, any dirtiness, any allegation, concoction makes sense to the electorate. Now, people want to Anita Among out of Bukete. They want out of parliament. The West are not bothered about your rights of strike, of genuine assembly. No. What they are more bothered is their interest. Now they want LGBT, the gay issues to come in Uganda. You are not allowing.
So you think it's a bite back because of also some LGBT issues?
Definitely.
Okay. Also, I know.
So the other position,
yes,
even in opposition, the problem now, this would be a campaign where the president would have been part of it, and even the opposition. Why?
Absolutely.
Because in opposition, they are saying, right Honorable Mbuka took 500 million, Sirwanya Solomon took 400, and others. Then we are also seeing another concoction of 1.7 billion against Senyon. Now, with such rumors,
there was also a news clip that came out this, I think in the UAE. The UAE, where they are saying that the UAE, our embassy was
they are converted into a casino by Jejodo.
Yes, so
clear.
Yes.
Now, all of this, we need to get a thorough investigation. The culprits should be aligned before the judicial process, and the court takes their position, and we should avoid corruption, because the bribery in corruption in courts will distort, will stop every position, unless there is a good messiah, unless the people you are appointing to be judges in the judiciary, they have G-ways. You don't have success for corruption, because the end of justice is in the courts. So
I know you explained something that was important about the militarization of the streets when it comes to some of these issues that have to do with public threats. But the point I would like to argue in terms of what they call the posse comitatus. The posse comitatus basically means when the army is actually called upon to carry out civilian activities in terms of enforcing law and order, if there is a substantial threat. So I would agree, especially with the UPDF Act, I think
Section 2.
Yes, Section 208, subsection 2, which mandates them to come and occasion or even protect civilian or even government entities if there are substantial threats. So
under job,
yes,
there's what we call sister forces. The army, the police work together in Uganda, and whenever police find that they might not manage a given situation, they call upon the UPDF to give them more support.
Okay, now this is the magical question to end our debate or our discussion. Was it right for police to deny these individuals to walk to parliament?
Was it right
for the police to deny these individuals to walk to parliament?
You see, parliament is one of the protected access areas in the entire even United States. You don't move to parliament anyhow. Remember when we had the issue of Trump, and people try to go
Yes.
to parliament.
Yes, I
They were
remember.
all arrested by the secret services.
True.
So the best way would be writing a letter to parliament.
Petition,
with so
perhaps.
many leaders of opposition and others, and the Speaker of Parliament would be aware, and then if they are refused, then another solution. That's how they will even come to strike, showing evidence. We went through the process,
Okay.
and we are not to be given a chance to be.
Oh, we're not given audience to it.
Audience.
Okay. Okay, so that's an interesting discussion. So we're not saying, in short, what I take away from the professor is that he's not saying that corruption is not in this country, but he's saying that even as we deal with this corruption, we should be very careful. I think he's saying, as you point your finger, you should also be careful that there are those fingers that are pointing
The
against you.
Sonia Mimbuga saga.
You know, the Senyi Mpuga saga now, that is what happened. You know, so...
But the point of Geraldine,
Yes.
also the mafia is using corruption as a mechanism targeting people.
Yes.
Is wrong. Geraldine is an innocent person. By the time of the cooperatives was never in office at that time, and even the people of Masaka Diocese are saying we are ready to pay back the 2.7 billion. I call upon all Ugandans. That lady is very clean. The mafias who could not make money, where they wanted to get other houses to rent and make a man of 10 billion. Geraldine said, no, let us use government properties. We can use the offices here. He's seen as a problem. Now in Uganda, whenever you don't allow the mafias to eat, you become a victim. You can be indicted, you can be terminated, you can be expelled, whatever the office.
Wow. So the professor has been extremely passionate about those two individuals, Geraldine and the Right Honorable Speaker, and he has his reasons for that. But I also want to invite you to look at some of the works that we've been doing at Sui Generis. Some of them have written a book called Demystifying the Order from Above, the people versus Uganda versus the Attorney General. And that's where we make a case and trying to demystify issues with the force commentators, aspects that have to do with the orders from above and you know, what is right in terms of enforcing. But also look at the other book called Demystifying the Executive Constitutional Mandate. When the presidential overreach, how do you tame the president in terms of impeaches? How do you happen? What are some of the do's and the don'ts that the president is supposed to do? Some of those books will explain some of these constitutional debates that we've been having here with my friend here. But we have also some wonderful books here that are just coming out. For example, Shadows of Silence, which is saying, you know, unsolved cold matters in Uganda. We have quite a number of examples here of some of the individuals, and we give solutions, whether by way of DNA or forensics. We have also Guardians of the Mind. We are told that many people are potentially berserk. So you need to find out some of these books in terms of what they call Guardians of the Mind. And we have got wonderful books like also these Smart Energies, eco-friendly in terms of renewable energy. This is probably the latest book as far as land is concerned. We've got many of them at local.org and suigenerisloapp.com. So we pride ourselves as being people who want to improve on the jurisprudence of this country. I have one also on Sharia law and banking, which was reviewed by my brother here, Dr. Shadat. Those of you who make this case that some of our books are not reviewed. He is an author himself, he is an authority himself, and he has written quite substantially in and around the world. So we want to continue this debate, and whatever we've said here is for intellectual consumption. It is food for thought. We don't intend to cause any arousal or invocation. We don't intend to victimize. We don't intend to abuse, insult, or even cause any disarray to any particular individual or any political individual or even any political party or even the state as it is. This is simply an academic debate with my brother here, Dr. Shadat. In conclusion, Dr. Shadat, is there something that you'd like our viewers to have as a takeaway?
I salute the viewers of this episode, and with the grace of God, may the Almighty Allah bestow mercy and blessing until the day of reckoning to the viewers and Uganda at large. Please, as we have challenges, I'm a scholar of alternative dispute resolution. Let us champion dialogue. Whenever you have dialogue, it promotes social cohesion of living together. It takes away the ideology of nepotism, which are the causes of corruption. Nepotism is one, tribalism number two, third is the commercialization of politics. I call upon the Judicial Service, I call upon the Electoral Commission to get information on the finances of these people, so that this will be one of the solutions of avoiding such. Let us have budgets which are open. If the budget is for Gulu University or the Sitema, let the districts know what is the budget and its expenditure. That transparency will be a mechanism. Let us also, on issues of procurement, let the procurement be transparent. The universities, the issues of external auditors, their reports should be scrutinized. With such a mechanism, we shall limit on issue of corruption in public offices.
Okay.
And also bribery between me and you. Whenever you go to offices, you want quicker services.
Chintu Chidogo.
And that Chintu Chidogo ideology is one of the way we have made this. The IGG, because the IGG office, it is more of a rapid, or it is more of a school that is also trained to promote corruption.
Right.
The individuals in IGG are corrupt. So now that one is also a problem, that the person you are telling to fight corruption is more corrupt. The judge that you are telling to handle the case wants bribery. As I've given you the numbers, are clear. Whenever we have bids, contracts, somebody says, please bring 5 billion, I give you a contract. These people have priorities. Can't we have something better? You saw the amount of money lost on road construction. You saw Right Honorable Katumba Amala in Parliament trying with all effort to say that no, UNRWA should get away. It can be merged under the Ministry of Works. They refused it. Now, this Ugandans will complain tomorrow. The man has given evidence of the amount of money that is paid, and tomorrow you'll be making noise of corruption. If you people in Parliament don't stand up with the others, and I call upon Ugandans, you know the corrupt MPs, don't vote them back. But the problem, you are given 20,000, some of you are given something like sugar, others are given liquors, you vote these people back in power. You are so cheap that we have taken away your democracy. I salute you, and for God and my country.
I would like to invite you also to look at some of our books, especially one called Ubuntu Bulamandalo. And I think that what Dr. Shadat, being an expert in ADR, those are some of the areas of alternative dispute resolution, but also that's where my PhD is coming from in terms of Ubuntu Bulamandalo towards the new constitutional dispensation. And those are some of the things that I think we need this country to look at as alternatives to try and settle the many amenities or the many challenges that we are going through. Once again, thank you. My name is Isaac Christopher Lugogo. Greetings from Sui Generis, and thank you, Professor, for your discussion. God bless you. Let's meet again.